In the heart of a war-torn city, where the echoes of gunfire and the wail of sirens were an unceasing background, there was a man named Jack Anders. Jack was a seasoned mercenary, one of the best in the business, his reputation built on years of taking on dangerous missions in the most volatile regions of the galaxy. A man of few words, his life had been defined by the chaos of battle, the price of survival, and the fleeting connections that came with being a hired gun. He had seen it all: wars, betrayals, friendships that fell apart, and love that was always just out of reach. But in all his years of service, Jack never expected to find himself in the middle of something far bigger than any mission he'd ever taken. It all began one fateful night in a crumbling part of the city, where the remnants of a long-standing conflict had left the streets in ruin. Jack had been hired by a wealthy corporate client to provide security during an extraction mission. The target? A diplomat. Or so he thought. The truth was far more complicated. As Jack stood guard outside the dimly lit building, a sleek, black car skidded to a halt in front of him. A woman stepped out, a figure cloaked in shadow, her movements graceful and deliberate. Her eyes, hidden beneath a hood, gleamed with an almost otherworldly intensity, and her presence seemed to command the very air around her. Jack, ever the professional, sized her up quickly, but said nothing. The job was simple: escort the diplomat out of the war zone and keep her safe. He didn't need to know more. Or so he thought. Before Jack could say a word, the sound of a distant explosion shook the ground beneath them, and gunfire erupted from the shadows. In an instant, the street was filled with armed assailants, masked and ruthless, their aim clear. They wanted the woman. Without hesitation, Jack dove into action, drawing his weapon and firing at the attackers. The firefight was brutal, but Jack had survived worse. He moved with the precision and skill that had kept him alive all these years, taking down one enemy after another. But just as he thought they had gained the upper hand, one of the attackers lunged forward, a high-powered sniper rifle aimed at the woman. Time seemed to slow. Jack didn't think, he just acted. He pushed her aside, taking the bullet meant for her. The force of the impact slammed into his side, and the world spun as he fell to the ground. Blood poured from the wound, staining the dirt beneath him, and everything went black. When Jack awoke, it was to the sound of a soft, melodic voice. His head throbbed, and his body felt like it had been torn apart. He tried to move, but found himself strapped to a medical bed, wires and tubes connected to his body, and a steady beeping sound in the background. The voice he heard belonged to her, the woman he had protected. She was sitting by his side, her face illuminated by a soft, ethereal glow. As his vision cleared, he realized that she was no ordinary woman. Her features were delicate, almost alien in their perfection. Her eyes shimmered with an intensity that went beyond human understanding, and there was an aura of power about her that left him breathless. "You're awake," she said, her voice calm but filled with an underlying warmth. "You're lucky to be alive." Jack's voice came out hoarse. "Who are you?" he managed to ask, his mind still foggy from the blood loss and confusion. The woman smiled gently, her eyes softening. "My name is Lyra. I'm not who you think I am." Jack blinked, trying to process her words. "Lyra? I was protecting you. I didn't know who you were." "Who? What are you?" Lyra's smile faltered for a moment, and she took a deep breath. "I didn't want you to find out this way, but I owe you the truth." She leaned closer to him, and in the dim light, Jack could see the faint glow of her skin. It wasn't human. It was almost as if her skin absorbed the light around her, creating an otherworldly aura. "I am not from this planet," she continued. "I am the princess of a distant world, Lyra. My people have been at war with a faction that is determined to destroy us. I came here to seek refuge and help from your people, But my identity had to remain a secret. Jack's mind raced as the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. The bullet wound still throbbed in his side, but his focus was on her words. "Princess? You're an alien?" Lyra nodded, her gaze unwavering. "Yes, I am a princess, and my people need help. But more than that, I owe you my life. If you hadn't taken that bullet, I would be dead." Jack was still in shock, trying to process the enormity of what he had just learned. He had saved a princess, an alien princess, and had no idea. The irony wasn't lost on him, but he pushed the thoughts aside. "You're welcome," he said, his voice rough but sincere. "It was my job. You would have done the same." She shook her head. "No, Jack. You don't understand. You protected me without knowing who I was. You risked your life for someone you barely knew, and for that, I will be forever grateful. But it's not just a matter of me being grateful. My people, they know what you did. They will want to reward you, but I need to ask something more of you." Jack raised an eyebrow, still processing her words. "What do you mean?" "I need you to come with me," she said quietly, her tone serious. "My people are on the brink of destruction, and I cannot do this alone. I need your help. I know you're a mercenary, and I know you've seen your share of battles, but this is bigger than anything you've faced before." Jack stared at her, his heart racing. He had spent his life fighting for money, for survival, and for the thrill of the mission. But this was something entirely different. He had protected a princess, a woman who wasn't just someone important in a war, but someone whose fate was tied to the future of an entire civilization. His instinct told him to walk away, to stay out of whatever conflict she was embroiled in. But the connection between them was undeniable, and the way she looked at him, the way she saw him, made him realize he couldn't walk away. "Not this time. I'll do it," he said, his voice filled with determination. "I'll help you, but only if you promise me one thing." Lyra looked at him, a soft smile playing at the corners of her lips. "Anything. You'll never have to fight alone again," he said. "We'll do this together." The days that followed were a blur of rapid decisions and dangerous missions. Jack and Lyra worked together, forming an unbreakable bond as they fought side by side against an enemy that was unlike anything Jack had ever seen. The war Lyra spoke of was more than just politics or military power. It was a fight for the very survival of an entire world. As they moved through the galaxy, gathering allies and building a resistance, Jack found himself falling deeper for Lyra. She was strong, capable, and unlike anyone he had ever known. And for the first time in his life, Jack felt as though he was part of something bigger than himself, part of a cause that was worth fighting for. Their love grew with each passing day, and despite the chaos around them, they found solace in each other. Together, they faced the challenges that came their way, united not only by love but by a shared desire to protect their worlds, to bring peace to a war-torn galaxy. In the end, it was their combined efforts that turned the tide of the war. With Lyra's leadership and Jack's combat skills, they were able to rally enough support to defeat the enemy and ensure the survival of Illyria. But their victory wasn't just about the battle they had won. It was about the life they had built together, a life based on trust, sacrifice, and the deep bond they had forged. As they stood together, watching the stars shine brightly overhead, Jack realized that taking that bullet had changed everything, not just for him, but for an entire galaxy.